Hello and Happy New Year. Today we are talking about the Dromedary Camel on the 50th episode of the Planet Zoo Experience. And quite honestly, this one's going to be mostly just history of the animal itself and our interaction with it. But don't worry, there is going to be a little bit of extra information that I can give. First and foremost, though, I would like to talk about the exhibit we are doing today. Now, as you can see, I am attempting to make rows in my exhibit, and it is because I am going to make sand dunes. Now, this first bit is going to be a whole lot of things that you shouldn't do when attempting to make sand dunes. So, as you can see, the first attempt I did wasn't good. Straight lines are certainly no way to make good and proper sand dunes. Now, it is also important to note that when making sand dunes, you're going to want to somewhat cut off the front of the dune because that will give it a more accurate appearance, seeing how the way sand dunes are made in nature is the sort of piling upon one another like a wave. Now, as you can see, this also didn't cut. And why is that? Well, quite simply, sand dunes are not lines, not uniform lines. They kind of, as you can see, have openings, closings, little bits here and there rather than just one big straight line. And this will end up being the final product for our sand dunes. Now, the exhibit itself is actually going to be more than just sand dunes. It is going to be a dusted over expeditionary location. I was originally going to make it British Expeditionary, but I couldn't figure out how to get a flag in the game, and I don't think they are an option, so womp womp. So, we're just going to pretty much make it a general observational area. So as you can see, we're adding the other little additions to it, removing the more festive bits, and we're going to be using this as the center area for the animal to relax in. Now to the animal itself. I know there's a lot of yapping up front. So, the Dromedary Camel, also known as Camelus dromedarius, which is camel, duh, and dromedarius, which is a late Latin word deriving from the Greek term for a running camel. I guess they didn't see the Bactrian camel run when Alexander made his way through Afghanistan, so we're gonna pretty much stick with that. As for its location, it is pretty wide-ranged area, being one of the few animals that can be found in the Sahara Desert itself, obviously in the Sahel and the Arabian Peninsula, including areas as far abroad as Iran, Afghanistan, and Pakistan, and a wild feral population has accidentally been introduced into Australia. I'm very surprised that an animal could actually be introduced to Australia and thrive in that psychotic land. Now, like I said, it's going to be mostly history, so let's start from the beginning. The first camel appeared during the Upper Eocene in North America, known as the Protolupus. Only being about 2.6 feet long, it probably weighed somewhere around 57-ish pounds. Now, it is interesting to note that there was also a massive camel species that went extinct, also native to North America, known as Camelops, which lived in North and Central America, roughly 4 to 3.7 million years, all the way up to roughly 13 to 12,000 years ago. So very late extinction. And they could reach a shoulder height, mind you, shoulder, not head, shoulder height of 7 feet 7 inches tall and probably weighed roughly anywhere from 1,800 to 2,200 pounds. Now, the dromedary itself most likely evolved in the hotter areas of Asia, probably the Middle East. That's the best guess. And the first archaeological evidence of the animal was found on the southern coast of the Red Sea, dating roughly 8200 BC. And ever since, they have had a very prominent part in human evolution. For instance, were first thought to have been ridden 4,000 years ago. That is the second millennium BC. And the first recorded use of camel cavalry was in the Battle of Karkar in 853 BC between the Neo-Assyrian Empire and the 12 Kingdoms Alliance. Ever since, they have been a massive part in pretty much every Abrahamic text. From the very beginning of Abraham himself, most likely owning many camels, the fact that they were the form of transportation for the kings to see baby Jesus, and obviously the term, it's easier for a camel to pass through the head of a needle than for a rich man to go to heaven. Based Christ. And even from the Quran of the she-camel that was sent to Thamud to prove the prophetic nature of Salih. Now, there have been, while I was doing some research, debates about how the introduction of the camel to the biblical text somehow invalidates them, which, no. I am not a Christian, nor am I Jewish or Muslim, so understand that when I say that these are the dumbest accusations I've ever seen, it is completely non-biased. Seeing how, as we have stated, they have been ridden for thousands of years, and the first noted battle with cavalry was against the Jewish state. I'm pretty sure they had camels around the time of the writing of the Torah. Now, they were also brought all over the world. For instance, getting back to the Australia issue, originally they were brought in the 1840s in an attempt to explore the Australian Outback. And they were used to very good effect. The issue is they were kind of abandoned and just allowed to roam free, and now there is a massive problem with the Dromedary Camel causing issues for the ecology. Interestingly, though, most of the issues aren't causing native animals to go extinct, but rather have caused issues for the indigenous people, not being able to properly harvest certain plants and whatnot that they usually would because it's being eaten by the camel. And yes, it is pushing out some smaller animals, but for the most part, they're not that bad in the grand scheme of invasive species, but it's still an issue. And something that is probably going to take up way too much time, I wish to delve deeper into the U.S. Camel Corps. Something I spoke slightly about in the Bactrian Camel video, but to be honest, back at that point, my audio was crap. I didn't know how to speak, and we're going back over this because I love this little bit of information because I couldn't find anything relating to a YouTube video that discussed this. So let's just get on into it. First conceived in 1836 by Major George H. Crossman while fighting the Seminole War in Florida. Now, why the fuck he thought camels were needed as a beast of burden in Florida of all fucking places is beyond me. But he was very influential in my home state, so we're just gonna let it slide. While his request to the War Department fell on deaf ears, about 10 years after, a Major Henry C. Wayne would conduct a more detailed study, and the result of which agreed with the then Senator of Mississippi, Jefferson Davis. Yes, the same Jefferson Davis that would lead the Confederate States of America. Yeah, it's gonna get even weirder, don't worry. Now, he would be unsuccessful in procuring camels until 1853, when then President Franklin Pierce would appoint Davis as Secretary of War. Just off the tail end of the Mexican-American War and the current fighting against the Apache, Navajo, and quite honestly every single tribe left in America, it seemed fitting to finally bring these unglets back to the fatherland. So, In his annual report on 1854, Davis added, and I quote, "I again invite attention to the advantages to be anticipated from the use of camels and dromedaries for military and other purposes." Now, one thing I do want to note about that is the interesting separation of camels and dromedaries. Very interesting. But on March 3rd, 1855, either out of agreement or just wanting to shut this camel-obsessed redneck up, U.S. Congress allocated $30,000 to get some camels. Now, that is an absolute shit ton of money today. Prim, throw it up. So, due to the shared interest, Major Wayne was sent on June 4th, 1855 from New York City to Tunisia, Malta, Greece, Turkey, and Egypt to acquire 2 Bactrian camels, 29 dromedary camels, and he also hired 5 camel drivers to come with them to help teach the American caretakers. On the trip to Indianola, Texas, 1 male would die, but 2 calves were born, so it ended up as a net gain, apparently. While a lot of tests were done during the Corps' existence, the only notable act was one Lieutenant Edward F. Bale, who also was very into the idea of bringing camels to the U.S., led a road survey from Antonio, Texas, to Fort Defiance, a route that may have made up part of the Interstate 10 in the modern day. Unfortunately, as the Civil War began, the Camel Corps slowly ended. And as the war ended, the Corps was ended as well. Probably as a final fuck you to that traitor Jefferson Davis. But our story does not end there, as one descendant of the Camel Corps became a folk legend in Arizona. It was known as a large red camel with a human skeleton placed upon its back, riding throughout the deserts of the Badlands. And it was known as the Red Ghost. And that is the American Camel Corps. Now, as for its influence today, I mean, there's plenty. Where to start? From the fact that it is the year of the camel, as noted by the Saudis in Arabia, which is also the national animal of Saudi Arabia, to the mere fact that it's the standard emoji for a camel, and it is, quite honestly, one of the most iconic animals in the world. You think of a desert, the dromedary is coming up. So, without further ado, here is our exhibit. I have pretty much neglected it the entire time after the opening statement. But, as you can see, a nice little oasis. The animals are loving it. And, yeah. If you enjoyed the video and enjoyed the nice little bit of story time, thank you very much. Feel free to like, share, and subscribe, because most of you did not see my New Year's video, which I don't blame you, to be honest. I will be doing more types of content. The videos are going to slow down a bit because I have a lot on my plate this year, but I will attempt to get as many videos out as I can, as fast as I can, with better quality. And until next time, thank you very much for watching. Go outside, touch grass, drink water, hug your loved ones, and bye-bye.